hamburgers. Thing 1 and thing 2. Okay, good afternoon, council and staff. Thank you very much for being so bright and cheerful on this lovely sunny day. We're going to have our meeting called to order now, please, at 1 o'clock, 1 actually. And the proceedings of this meeting will be recorded and made available on the internet. Could we have the roll call, please?
Yes, thank you. Mayor Clarkson, are you present?
I am.
Deputy Mayor Windover?
Yes.
Councilor Armstrong?
Present.
Councilor Franzen?
Yep.
Councilor Lambshead?
Yes.
For staff, Donna Taggart, CAO Treasurer, present. Steve Brockbank, Director of Emergency Services.
Present.
Dylan Kosh, Director of Recreation and Facilities.
Present.
Ivan Coombs, Director of Public Works.
Present.
John Isaiah, Chief Building Official.
Present.
Tiffany Lai, Planning Administrator.
Present.
Adele Arbor, Temporary Manager of Building and Planning.
Present.
Ann Ruth, Deputy Clerk.
Present.
Chelsea Carpenter, Waste Management Public Works Coordinator.
Present.
And Jesse Clark, Director of Corporate Services, Clerk, is present.
Thank you, Jesse. We're now going to have a moment of reflection, and if anybody has anybody specifically they'd like to mention, please do it now. Councilor Lambshead?
Yeah, Rob Myatt passed away last week, a longtime resident in Trent Lakes, lived on the south end of Ketchapoma Lake for many years and been around for decades. Sad to hear his passing.
Who's that, Terry?
Rob Myatt.
Yeah.
Okay, so now if we for ironing this out, and I'm going to reiterate again, disclosure of pecuniary interest. And reminding council members of their obligations to declare any pecuniary interest they may have either at this time or at any time in the future? Seeing no hands, we need adoption for the minutes for the regular of January the 20th and the statutory public. Motion, please.
Through you, Mayor Clarkson, I believe we skipped the approval of the agenda, or I missed it.
Nope, you didn't miss it, I did. Okay, get motion to approve the agenda, please.
Motion to approve the
Councilor
agenda as
Ramsden,
amended.
Deputy Mayor Windover, all in favor? Motion has carried. Now we'll adopt the minutes of the regular and statutory meetings of Creation of Culture Advisory Committee and PRCAC response to Council Resolution 2021-46. Motion. Councilor Armstrong.
Motion to receive.
Second.
Okay, Councilor Lambshead, all in favor? And that motion is carried. Statutory public meeting pursuant to the Planning Act. We now need a motion to suspend the regular meeting, and I need a seconder, please.
Make a motion to suspend the regular council meeting.
Thank you, Councilor Lambshead. Thank you, Councilor Armstrong. And that motion has carried. So now, Tiffany, if you are on, if we could get you to introduce the file 2023, please.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. This is a public meeting under Section 34 of the and Section 22 of the Planning Act to consider amendment to the municipality zoning bylaw amendment and official plan amendment for file. A public notice of public meeting for today's application containing the prescribed information was circulated to all landowners within a 120-meter radius of the subject lands at least 20 days prior to this meeting. A notice was also mailed to all prescribed agencies, public bodies, and persons in accordance with the regulations. Anyone wanting to be notified of any decision from today's public meeting must send in a written request to myself, the planning administrator, or the clerk, and the notice of passing will be mailed to them, setting out the method and manner in which appeals may be made to the local planning appeal tribunal. Please note that if a person does not send a written comment prior to the passing of the bylaw or make an oral submission at a public meeting, that person may not be entitled to appeal that decision. So this is a public meeting for file 2023 to consider zoning bylaw amendment submitted by John Carley for a vacant lot located on Shaw's Road. The Carleys have submitted this application for a zoning bylaw amendment to fulfill a condition of consent approval. The consent applications resulted in the creation of 2 new lots and 1 retained. The consent was approved by the County of Peterborough Land Division Committee on October 15, 2020. There's a planning memo on the agenda from myself, the planning administrator, in support of the application. The purpose of the zoning bylaw amendment is to rezone the subject lands from rural to environmental protection on Lot 2. The applicant has submitted a wetland delineation report prepared by Cambium in support of the consent application. The report recommended that there be a 30-meter setback from the watercourse and wetland feature on Lot 2. The hatched area represents a 30-meter buffer from the watercourse and the wetland along Lakehurst Court. This will prevent any development on those areas zoned as environmental protection. I've shown in figure 2 of the report. The application appears to be generally consistent with the PPS and the growth plan. At the time of writing this report, a new reference plan for the severed lots had not been submitted to the municipality. In order to ensure the approval of this amendment includes the legal description of the new lots, it will be recommended that approval of the zoning amendment be deferred pending delivery of the new reference plan. A site plan development agreement will also need to be drafted to capture the recommendations from the wetland delineation report prepared by Cambium. Staff received a comment from Neil McDonald with questions about whether the owners intended to sell the properties once the lots were created and whether any development was proposed on the lots. If any development is to occur, they must meet the provisions of the zoning in effect, which is rural. We also received a letter of support this morning from Sheila Perry, a property owner at 77 Shaws Road. Staff is recommending that council support the zoning bylaw amendment 2023 and further that council defer approval of the zoning bylaw amendment pending delivery of the new reference plan.
Okay, thank you. Now, we have had a request from Neil McDonald to speak regarding this application. If you're there, could you unmute, please, and share your camera and provide your comments? We also have the owner, John Farley, available for any questions.
Good afternoon. It's Neil McDonald here. I'm afraid my camera's not working that well, but I hope you can hear me. I guess I have just a couple of questions. I'm just curious as to the nature of the development that I understand the owner would like to put on the new lot 2. And, or more specifically, do they in fact intend to build on either of the 2 lots? And I'd like to know the nature of that building.
Tiffany, can you speak to that?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I don't know the intent by the owners, but when I did discuss with Mr. Carley, he said that if there is any building or development, they would meet the provisions of the zoning, which is the rural zoning. So there's a number of different permitted uses. So dwellings, I guess you could do barns or whatever that they intend. I don't think he has a specific intention at this time.
Okay. So I presumably, if and when he does intend to put an improvement on the property, he will go through the usual procedures to apply for the permits, and the public will be notified?
Through you, Madam Mayor, so the owner, if they were to submit a building permit, the public won't be notified. It's only if the owner needs another, like a minor variance or rezoning in order to do the development they wish to do. So if it was just, for example, if they wanted to build a dwelling on the property and it met all the setbacks, it would just go to a building permit and it would be issued directly to the owner.
I see. Okay, well, that's all I had to know. I just, maybe just by way of express our interest in the property. We are on Fire Route 42, and the creek that has been subject to the zoning amendment, it passes right along the northern perimeter of our property. So we are very much interested in how this unfolds. I'll also note that having been vacant, we have spent many hours traversing through the land with our granddaughter and taking great pleasure from this property. So we are very much interested in the fate of this property and whatever impact it might have on our lot, which, as I say, is across Fire Route 42 from the property, and the creek flows on our northern perimeter. So we look forward to watching how this progresses.
Okay, thank you. John Carley, are you available for answering any of the questions that this gentleman might have had?
Yes, you can hear me?
Yes?
Okay, good. Yes, this is the whole parcel of land my father, Bob, bought in the 1960s. And as I was telling Tiffany, there was a rumor, you may all remember this, that there was going to be a Ontario Woodstock held. And Dad had the opportunity to buy it to protect it. And all the cottagers along that way have benefited from it being vacant. The former Reeve used to pasture his cattle on the land, as you may know. In any case, it's been vacant. My mother passed away, and we 4 siblings inherited the land. And proposing this, we've got the consent, and we are now asking for this zoning amendment to fulfill the obligations of the consent, and that's no problem. We don't know the new lot 1 and 2 will be put up for sale. I'll be purchasing the retained lot from my siblings. But that's what we know.
Thank you. Now, have we got council comments or questions? Anyone? Yes,
A little comment, it's nice that we've identified the wetland and it's been outlined accurately. So that's a good step.
all right. Thank you very much for this presentation. Now, if we can move on to 2029. Tiffany, would you like to introduce this file, please?
Yep, through you, Madam Mayor. This is a public meeting for file 2029 to consider a zoning bylaw amendment submitted by a numbered Ontario company in care of Larry Ketchaball for a vacant lot located on Gold Lake. Larry Ketchaball submitted this application for a zoning bylaw amendment to fulfill a condition of consent approval. The consent applications result in the creation of 2 new lots and 1 retained. The purpose of the zoning bylaw amendment is to amend the Island Residential 7 zone, as shown on Figure 1, for the retained lot to recognize a minimum lot area. The severed lots will be rezoned from Island Residential 7 to just Island Residential. The consent was approved by the County of Peterborough Land Division Committee on August 25th, 2020. The applicant has submitted a site-specific lake impact assessment prepared by Niblet Environmental Associates, dated September 2019 in support of the consent application and zoning amendment. There is a planning memo on the agenda from myself in support of the application. The application appears to be generally consistent with the PPS and growth plan. The zoning amendment will bring the lots into conformity with the zoning bylaw, and a site plan agreement will need to be drafted to capture the recommendations from the study prepared by Niblet and the recommendations outlined in the comments received by the Ministry of Environment dated June 29. Staff have not received any comments from agencies or neighbors in respect to this application. Staff is recommending that council support the zoning bylaw amendment application, and further that council directs staff to prepare a zoning bylaw amendment and development agreement to be brought back to for approval at a future council meeting.
Okay, do we have questions or comments from council? Okay, seeing none, thank you. Official plan amendment number 54. Tiffany?
Through you, Madam Mayor, this is a public meeting for official plan amendment 54, submitted by Cliff Calloway on behalf of Paul and Maria Calloway for 3 shoreline properties located on Fire Route 94 on Pigeon Lake. The applicant wishes to apply for consent to facilitate a lot addition from lot 2 to 3. The purpose of the lot addition is to provide lot 3 with more frontage on Fire Route 94 and improve the viability of the lot for construction of a dwelling. In order to proceed with the consent approval, the applicant is required to amend the non-conforming official plan designation. There is a planning memo on the agenda from Chris Jones, the municipal planning consultant, in support of the application. The report notes the application appears to be generally consistent with the PPS and growth plan. The amendment is technical in nature and will correct a commercial land designation that is no longer valid, and will align the official plan with the shoreline residential private access zone, which currently applies to the lots. The OPA will also allow a future consent application for the lot addition to be submitted to the county. Staff received a comment from the City of Kawartha Lakes and Peterborough Public Health with no objection. Staff is recommending that council receive this report and adopt OPA 54 to redesignate the lands located in part of Lot 16, Concession 13, described legally as Parts 3 and 4, Parts 5 and 6, and Parts 7, 8, and 9 of Plan 45-7787 from the commercial designation to the recreation dwelling area designation.
Okay, questions or comments from council?
A comment, it just seems like a reasonable ask for relief.
Now we need a motion to reconvene the regular meeting. Motion please, Deputy Mayor Wendover, Councillor Franzen. Can we have the vote, please? Motion is carried. business arising from statutory public meeting. Tiffany, Planning Administrator, Zoning Bylaw Amendment 2023 for Carly. We need the motion. Motion, please.
I'll make a motion that we support the zoning bylaw amendment application 2023 and further that council defer approval of the zoning bylaw amendment pending the delivery of a new reference plan agreement.
Thank you. And do we have a seconder for that motion? Councilor Armstrong. All in favor? That is carried. Zoning bylaw amendment 2029, please. Motion. Deputy Mayor Windover.
Motion.
Thank you. And seconding. Councilor Clancy. All in favor? That motion is carried. Official plan amendment number 54. Motion, please. Councilor Armstrong.
Move to proceed report and to adopt official plan amendment 54.
Thank you. And seconder. Councilor Lambshead. All in favor? Carried. Presentations. We now have a presentation from Julie Ingram, manager from the Environmental Health and Chief Building Official, Sewage System, Part 8, for Peterborough Public Health regarding on-site sewage system maintenance inspections. Please unmute your audio and or share your camera and make your presentation. You will have 20 minutes, and I will ask council that all questions are saved until the end of this presentation. Okay, Julie.
I think I'm figuring it out here. Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me? Just nods or a thumbs up if you can. I
We can
see.
hear you.
Oh, thank you. Well, Madam Mayor, members of council and staff, thank you so much for having me attend this afternoon. It's great to see your faces virtually still. I'm partially at blame to that, but that's okay. I do appreciate your time, and this afternoon, as it indicates, I'm going to just talk to you about the maintenance inspection programs that are happening in the municipality of Trent Lakes, give a bit of a summary for 2020. So I'll have the next slide, please. And thank you to the guru behind the scenes controlling the slides, because I tend to be technologically challenged sometimes, so I appreciate it. So as I mentioned, I'm going to present to you today just to provide an update on the maintenance inspection programs that occurred in 2020 for the municipality of Trent Lakes. I'm going to provide a summary of the data and then consider the options and next steps for 2021 and the upcoming maintenance inspection season. I'm just getting a motion here that I'm backlit and I should try to move. So sorry while I adjust. Is that better? There we go. Okay, great. Thank you. So as you know, or I think you all know by now after my many years of preaching, there are a couple different types of maintenance inspection programs, or more commonly known as re-inspections. So we have the mandatory maintenance inspection program and the discretionary program. The authority for both of these maintenance inspection programs comes from the Building Code Act and the Ontario Building Code. And the mandatory maintenance inspections are those that are required to be done because they're located in a source water protection area. So there's actually 63 of those within the municipality of Trent Lakes, primarily in Alpine Village and Buckhorn Lake Estates. The discretionary maintenance inspection programs are those that are not regulated under the Clean Water Act. However, these programs are established by a municipality or a cottage association or some other agency that's looking to have these inspections done. So they're discretionary in the sense that they're not provincially regulated, but once a program is established, they do become mandatory on their own. So Trent Lakes also does have this type of program in your jurisdiction, as you know, and we've been conducting that program since 2016. Next slide, please. So there's limited evidence about the benefits of maintenance inspection programs. The Federation of the cottagers associations, has done a lot of work in trying to pull together some of the data. And this is some of it that you can see here. But the bottom line is that it is an ongoing recommendation. One of the problems with on-site sewage systems is that they're regulated in the sense that they require permits and they require inspections, but there's no ongoing regulation for them. You know, for our vehicles, we have routine maintenance. And I always like comparing a sewage system to a vehicle because there needs to be that routine maintenance. But if nobody's checking, then are people really doing it? We don't know. And that's one of the benefits of the maintenance inspection programs, is to make sure that people are maintaining their sewage systems as they're supposed to be doing. There's no provincial database for on-site sewage systems. Each local agency is responsible to maintain their own records, but various evidence in Ontario shows that about 70% of sewage systems aged 7 to 15 years old are failing, and 55% of failures are attributed to poor maintenance and management of the sewage system. So that's where reinspection programs can significantly benefit both environmental and public health protection. So the more recent amendments to the building code do allow for the creation of maintenance inspection programs, and that's the tool that we primarily use, is the Act and the code in order to establish these. The education component of maintenance inspection programs, to me, is one of the most important pieces. It's great to see the numbers and it's great to see the minor deficiencies and the major deficiencies, but what isn't always captured is the amount of education that we can provide property owners so that they are better informed about their sewage system. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in an upcoming slide. Next slide, please. So there's many different activities involved with the reinspection program. It is quite heavy on the administration side of things, as I'm sure your staff can speak to, as well as Peterborough Public Health staff. So we do our best to try to break the activities down into quarters, depending on the time of year. So right now we'd be in Q1, and this would be the time for the discretionary program that we would receive the list from your staff, start doing file searches to determine what properties are exempt. We finalize reports from the previous year, finalize inspection certificate, deficiency notices. All of that type of work usually happens Q1 and spills over a little bit into Q2 as well. And then we start to send out the letters. So letting property owners know that they will be subject to the reinspection for this year. We start to get questionnaires back. We'll begin to book inspections. And then our inspections usually begin in May, depending on the weather. So Q3, we continue with inspections. We do ongoing administration of certificates and deficiency notices as needed. And then finally in Q4, that's our wrap up. We start pulling together our statistics and we work on year-end reports. And then if there's any letters or orders, we try to get that done in Q4 as well. So that's sort of the annual overview, and then we start all over again. So, and somewhere in that process, we pick up the previous year's inspection activities as well. So somebody that maybe missed a previous year and we need to go back to. So that's important to remember as well. It's easiest for us in planning to try to break things down into a quarterly process, but it doesn't always work out, but we strive to do that. So that's great. The next slide is perfect. So the fee is sitting at $325. It is a cost recovery program. So everything that is charged to the discretionary reinspection program or the mandatory reinspection program goes back to those programs. So none of the funds go to fund the regular sewage program that's funded by those fees. So it is important to keep that in mind, that it is a full cost recovery model. And that's the breakdown approximately as to where the fees go. So it's not a revenue generating program by any means. That's kind of the background of the reinspection program. I just wanted to give you that information before we jump in and look at the numbers, because we do like numbers, don't we? So we'll go to the next slide, and I'll start with the numbers from the mandatory maintenance inspection. So as I mentioned, there's the 63 properties in the municipality of Trent Lakes that have sewage systems that are located within the source water protection area. Therefore, they're due for inspection every 5 years. This year was the first year using the online reporting tool, and that worked well. In addition to that, I did provide a summary to staff of the reinspection program activities that occurred under the Clean Water Act. So of the 63 properties, only 8 were actually due for inspection this year, but 6 received inspection. 2 were deferred, 1 because they have installed a new sewage system within the last 5 years, so we defer it. And then 1 had a full inspection of the system in response to a renovation application, so that also gets deferred. Of the 6 that were inspected, 5 properties were in full compliance. There were no deficiencies identified, and 1 property just had a minor deficiency, a cracked septic tank lid, and I'm really pleased and happy to say that the homeowner was very compliant in rectifying that and getting that fixed. So that's sort of the brief summary of the activities from this year for the mandatory maintenance inspections. And so that's great. Next slide. The expectations for 2021, it's a heavy year. This is the one thing about the mandatory maintenance inspections, because they are cyclical at every 5 years. So if we had a year that we did a lot of inspections, well, 5 years later, you're going to do a lot of inspections again. So we have 40 properties under the Clean Water Act that are due for inspection this year as part of the 5-year cycle. That number may fluctuate a little bit once we sit down and look at who's installed a new sewage system in the last 5 years, or if anybody's had a renovation, but approximately 40 properties. So it is a heavier year for Trent Lakes for mandatory maintenance inspections. And I plan on sending the letters out with staff. You see there it's April, May, and June. We are going to approach it a little bit differently this year from something that we've learned from the discretionary program, and that's to give homeowners a dedicated time frame. So we're going to give sort of a 2-week block of time that we're going to ask for their septic tank lids to be uncovered, rather than just blanketing and say uncover them and we'll be here within the next 4 months. We've learned that that doesn't work very well, and it does work better to give designated time frames. We're more apt to get the appointment with the property owner as well, and we're really pushing for appointments, especially in the clean water, under the Clean Water Act and in the source protection areas, because that's where the education's really important. We've also noticed that there's been quite a few turnovers of property owners in that area, so we're looking forward to that opportunity to provide some more education there. So we'll work with our administrative assistant and our program staff to book those in and do all of those this year. So that's what we're expecting for 2021 for the maintenance inspection side of things. So we'll talk about what happened in 2020 for the discretionary program. We received a list from the municipality and your staff. There was 301 properties on the list. This year's program, we focused on the geographical area up County Road 507, and in some of the fire routes sort of down Beaver Lake Road area, and a little bit more north of that, Greens Lake and that type of thing. My old stomping ground, actually. So I was excited that we got to do that area this year. We divided the properties up into 4 zones for inspections. That way, everybody had a bit more of a dedicated time frame that they knew we were coming, and to be prepared for their inspection. That worked really well, and that is something that we are going to continue. Should we proceed with the program this year at your request, we would continue that zone breakdown. So that's the geographical area of where our focus was. And if we can go to the next slide, please. So there's a lot of information on this slide, so I'll just take a few minutes to kind of go over the information for review. So you can see there that the different zones are broken up 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then the total in the final column. We tried to make it fairly equivalent, but also did it by fire route and geographical area to keep travel as efficient as possible. If a property is listed as exempt, that means that it either has had a new sewage system be installed over the last 10 years, or it had a complete inspection over the last 10 years. So an internal inspection of the tank, maybe for a renovation or something along those lines. So there was actually a pretty good number of exempt properties this year. Deferrals to 2021 could be at the request of the property owner. We did have some property owners who either did not attend the property, this season, or they didn't want somebody at the property because they were following COVID restrictions. We had some properties that we just had no response from. And when we went to the property, they weren't prepared, lids weren't uncovered, so those were deferred as well to 2021. Minor deficiencies would include things like a baffle needing to be replaced in a tank, an effluent filter to be cleaned, cracked lids, or a missing questionnaire. So if we didn't have the questionnaire and we didn't have enough information to do a calculation of the daily sewage flow, that would be noted as a minor deficiency, and we would try to get that information from the property owner as well, because that informs major deficiencies. Major deficiencies primarily are a malfunctioning sewage system, a steel tank, or a wood crypt, which we saw this year, which was interesting. And as well, if there's issues with the daily design sanitary sewage flow. And then certificates issued, that can include those minor deficiency properties as well, because if they rectify the issues quickly, then they would get their certificate. So the percentages in the final column don't add up to 100, and that's why you could have a couple appearing in a few different columns there. So we'll go on to the next slide, please. So I sort of touched on this, but you know, 2020 was a really interesting year on so many levels, to say the least. But when it comes to you know, inspectors going to your property, how do you balance that messaging of stay at home and please don't come to your secondary residence, don't have a non-essential visitors to your home, and stick with your household contacts? So we have all of this messaging going on, coupled with, oh hey, it's re-inspection time and we really want to come to your property to do a re-inspection. So 2 words, careful communication. That's what it came down to ultimately. And I think that we did have a very, very good response rate from the residents up there. It helps that many of them are actually permanent residents too. So as I mentioned, we did have some residents request to defer to 2021, and that was fine with us if they made that request. We also had to balance the fact that Peterborough Public Health was in emergency response when this program started. So some staff were deployed, and we had to shuffle our staff assigned to the on-site sewage program to balance the regular program activities as well as the re-inspection program. All of this amounted to a very busy year, but it was fun, that's for sure. So we'll go to the next slide, please. So looking forward, we want to know what the future holds. Currently, we are finalizing the property files from 2020. Certificates are going out the door. I have a large stack that need my signature on them, and then they'll head out. We're just finalizing some deficiency letters, and we're starting to plan for what 2021 might hold. There is a desire, I would say, from our office, as well as anecdotally from what we're hearing from members of the public, for this program to continue. There's a ton of value to this program, and I really can't emphasize the education piece enough. I know that I'm aware that more and more residents from other jurisdictions who may not be familiar operating on an on-site sewage system are coming up. We have seen an unprecedented number of failures of on-site sewage systems across the county this year. We do believe a lot of that is attributed to the fact that people are staying home. People are working from home. They're home all day. Previously, a sewage system would get a resting period or a drying out period for a few hours in the day when it wasn't being used. That's not happening. People are cooking, they're doing laundry, they're generating more sewage right now. So that's a very interesting thing in the sewage world and what we're seeing. So the more we can educate property owners, the better for the systems, the better for the maintenance, and the better for the environment. So the last time that I talked to you, Madam Mayor, I think it was through you that you had mentioned getting some type of feedback, and that was a really excellent idea. So we are currently working on a feedback survey right now that we will get voluntary buy-in from property owners to try to get some of that information and data back so that we can evaluate the program and make operational decisions based on that feedback moving forward. So looking forward to seeing some of that as well. So that's something that we will plan on implementing this year if we do go ahead. Okay, thank you. That's a 2-minute warning, I think. That's good. This is my last slide, I think, before the question slide. So again, based on your recommendation, if you would like to go ahead with the program, we are prepared to do that for the discretionary program. We will be going ahead with the mandatory inspections, the 40 that are due. You will need, as council, to decide on the approach based on the new services agreement. There's the basic, advanced, or third-party approaches. And I know that there is a staff report with a recommendation later on. Typically, we would ask for a list of 300 properties. However, given the 40 mandatory maintenance inspections and the 41 deferrals carry forward, I would request that that number just be reduced to 250 inspections to provide us with the capacity and to meet your budget needs, but we will target the number provided by staff based on your budget. So I would suggest to consider retaining the advanced approach for the consistency between the mandatory and the discretionary reinspection programs. I think that'll be easiest for the residents to understand. So, and I'll go to the next slide and say thank you very much for your time, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Well, Julie, thank you very much. That was a very in-depth, timely report, and I would like to open this up for questions, please. Councilor Armstrong?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. Thanks, Julie. This is an area of particular interest of mine, as you know, because I follow you every year for stats. I had 3 comments. The first was that I was subject to a discretionary inspection this year, and the entire thing went very smoothly. I had my certificate. I'm sorry I don't have it here to show, but it was an excellent process. Number 2, this is an extremely important program. Sewage and septic systems are the #1 cause, or failures of them are the #1 cause of deteriorating water quality. And as we know, we're a municipality of lakes and rivers, and this is extremely important to keep an eye on and continue the inspections. Historically, and again, this past year, we find about 10% of the septic systems have either minor or major deficiencies, which to me says this program is working and it's worth investing in. The third comment, actually 4. The third one is I know that we skipped a lot of water access only properties in Peptacoma this year because of COVID. And they often are a problem for homeowners to get pumped out and cleaned. And so I would just ask all of us to make sure that they're prioritized for 2021. And the last comment is around reporting. I think collectively, we as a council and you as PPH need to do a much better job providing feedback back to the areas that have had their inspections, because those areas are full of cottage associations, and they're the ones who really continue to educate their members about the importance of sewage management and septic system management. So I think if we can get a better process for you providing us with the results, and if we can have a better process of sharing that with the areas that were inspected, that would be great. I know that last year I had several requests from the Crystal Lake group, because they were done in 2019, but never got the feedback. And it's important to get it back to them because they communicate with all of their members and they raise the educational level in terms of keeping their septic systems properly maintained. So sorry, that was a long commentary. And I have to ask a question. So the only question is to ask if you could please work with us to have better feedback reporting to the areas that are inspected.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'd be happy to work with you, and I think that's great. I'm all about sharing the knowledge, so I'd love to strategize about that and get that message out there. So happy to do so.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? Deputy Mayor Windover?
Oh, hi, Judy. I just want to thank you very much for such a good job you and your staff are doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Just a question about cracked lids or being a minor deficiency. What sort of cracks are we talking about? Like a large piece missing or just a crack across it? Or?
So it would be, that's a great question. It would be anything that either A, affects the accessibility of the tank for maintenance. So if you're gonna lift that lid and it's gonna split and fall into the tank, have you ever happened to that? Have you ever experienced that? It's not pleasant, let me assure you. So it'd be something that would be a structural deficiency of that, or something, if there was, say, a corner of it missing, but that would allow surface water intrusion, that would be a minor deficiency as well.
Thank you very much.
I would like to ask if there's any kind of a requirement for new or people who are selling to provide an inspection of a septic tank to the prospective owners. Because in the days when we used to do our own property assessment, I was always interested in where septic tanks were. And I can more than one occasion remember people saying, septic tank, what's that? And they had explanation over top of it, or absolutely no idea where it was or what it was. And we assume, because we live here, that everybody's familiar with what a septic tank is. But in actual fact, that's not the case. So if there was a certificate of septic inspection issued to the prospective purchaser, it would be one step toward having that education done. Comment.
I agree with you in that I think that through the sale of a home, that would be a very good way to provide that education to the prospective buyers, especially because, as you mentioned, they may not have any idea what a septic system is. Unfortunately, to the best of my knowledge, under real estate laws and the building code, there is no mandated requirement to provide that or do that. What I will say is that we have presented to local realtor associations to try to get that message out there. And we do frequently, when it comes to purchases of sale and agreement, we will get search requests to our office, at least for information and records of the system. But that's only part of the story. I am aware that commonly, as a condition of sale, a septic tank pump out is a common condition of sale that is often on purchase agreements. But besides that, we don't have a role to play with that. We don't get involved in real estate inspections. The only reason that we would do something like that is if somebody made application to us for a review of their existing system, and then we would make comments on it that way. But it's not something that we typically get involved with. But you're right. I think advocating to the province for something like that would be a good thing.
Any questions? Do I see your hand there, Councilor Langston?
No, it was answered. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you very much. Then we have a motion for, yes, Councilor Deputy Mayor Window.
I'll make a motion to proceed it.
Yep, we received seconder, Councilor Langston, and all in favor. That motion is carried. Thanks again.
Thank you all very much.
Okay, we have a delegation, the second one from Bill Kent, representing the Buckhorn Community Center. And Bill, you will have 10 minutes.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Council. Thank you for receiving the Buckhorn Community Center today. This is regarding Resolution 2021-46, which we received from Councillor Franson at our January 19th Directors Meeting. We just wanted to make sure you were informed that the BCC has endorsed the idea of a viability study for the revitalization of the Buckhorn sports pad. And further, we do request that if possible, we could be involved in the development of the scope of work for that study. Further, today, we understand there's a draft motion on the agenda. We do believe that this issue of the sports pad requires a significant amount of discussion, and we hope that that will happen in the context of a study. If Council decides to approve a study today, then we simply ask that Council start at the beginning with a free, beautifully done outdoor ice rink that could be designed to be used 12 months of the year. And, you know, please understand that the BCC, any proposals will be discussed by the board, and if necessary, or they could be put to a member's vote. And we will probably continue to ask questions about this matter as they come up. We hope it's helpful if we offer an insight up front that the study could potentially be contentious around the vision of what revitalization means. We would like the study to prioritize the original concept of the sports pad. And we believe that success is linked to resolving the primary challenge of providing a reliable rink surface. The more the scope of the study is shifted to a new arena facility or other amenities apart from a basic outdoor rink, the more controversy and debate it will generate within the BCC, which represents a large body of opinion. We see this already in the proposed resolution. Necessary infrastructure should be categorized as necessary to providing a reliable rink surface to be in line with the original concept. We also would like to see, if possible, some attention paid to other outdoor facilities and what makes them successful where the Buckhorn Sports Pad hasn't been. The BCC does not envision itself as a modern sporting complex, and we don't necessarily make a connection between looking at a solution for the viability of the sports pad today and the extrapolated need for a new arena or sporting complex in Trent Lakes, and prefer not to comment on it. We look forward to participating in the study should it proceed. Thank you for your time. Any questions?
Thank you, Bill. Have we got questions from council? Councillor Branson?
Yes, Bill, I was wondering, I think that we probably need a public meeting before we proceed much further than we have now. Would the Buckhorn Community Center be available for a public meeting?
Well, certainly within the parameters of COVID get-togethers, we're holding Zoom meetings right now and waiting for an update from the province, I believe on the 10th. But the answer is yes, if possible.
Anyone else? Looking. Okay, I have a couple of comments. I imagine you knew that was coming. Sports pad is owned by the municipality and as such has the same obligation to be refurbished as any other of our community centers, roads, fire departments, etc. The feasibility study should have been done at least a year ago, and it would have prevented a lot of community anxiety. A large number of your membership live in Selwyn, and they have 2 rinks within a few miles of one another. The children who access this rink all season, when possible, are for the most part children who do not live on the lakes. Young family, many with businesses, are moving into this area. We need to meet their needs if we plan to grow a more diverse population. Weather patterns have changed drastically over the past 3 years, and without refrigeration, last year will be the last year there will be ice at the sports pad. These children do not play pickleball. Comment, Bill? On that, council. Councilor Anderson.
I do agree that the ice portion of that sports pad is very important to the municipality of Trent Lakes. I think it is also to BCC and the committees that are involved. A viability study is something we've discussed at length, and I think that all the participants should have a voice in what the scope study is going to be for viability.
Councilor Branson.
I believe that global warming or climate change, which is a better term for it, we've gone up 2 degrees per year. And the goal is to be under 2 degrees. So it hasn't been the last 3 years. We've had ice rinks in the past that have lost their ice cream. We've never had more than 3.5 months of ice in any of the facilities that are not cooled, that don't have a climate change.
Well, I think
And if that one's obsolete and won't produce ice, neither will the one in Calgary. There's very little temperature change between Buckhorn and Cavendish. This year, as an example, there wouldn't be any ice in Cavendish and there wouldn't be any ice in Buckhorn.
I think you've just made an argument for refrigeration.
What, putting a freezing plant in both facilities?
I don't think that's on the table.
Well, if one's obsolete, the other one's obsolete, and they're both municipal structures.
Well, is there any other conversation? Yes.
Thank you, Mayor. I have some comments. I don't know whether I should bring them here now or would we deal with the notice of motion?
Go ahead.
Okay, well, thank you. I agree with Councilor Lamb said. I think that we do need to settle the question of whether or not the present location of the sports pad will allow for refrigeration. And that we do need to get some expertise telling us whether or not it is feasible and what's required to do so. I also think, per Bill Kent's comments, that the study needs to be unbiased and objective, and it needs to look at alternatives. The first one being simply refrigeration of the period. What's required to do that? What would it cost? Can it be accommodated in the current location? Then the next one is to look at refrigeration plus some additional amenities, as suggested in your notice of motion, Madam Mayor. That would be the second one. And then if none of those are feasible, only then would we consider looking at a new location for it. And that is a whole nother discussion, as you have said, Bill. But I think that just to get some data and some information about the feasibility of refrigerating it and or adding some amenities is something that should be parceled out to an expert who can provide us with that data so that we help address the issues and concerns and anxiety and polarity that's out there right now about this.
Well said. Yes.
And I think that's like exactly what we'll do by having all the players at the table to have the right ideas put into that viability study.
Yes. Councilor Franson, sorry.
Sorry, your question. Does council feel that we need more public input and that public meeting will be warranted?
From the information that I've been able to, that people have given me, the feasibility study, once you talk about artificial ice, it comes with its own requirements. So a lot of the discussions that would take place in a public meeting are already set down by the requirements of the plant. Like we know we can't do porta potties, we know we can't do whatever, we know a septic system has to go in. There are things that are required to be done once you take that extra step. So as far as getting public consultation, you're getting public consultation on something that only the person who does the feasibility study, knowing that they're doing a feasibility study on a rig, will say this is what is required, this is the space you've got, this will work or it won't.
I think we need a public meeting on these. When we put in the medical center in Buckhorn, we had a public meeting to see how the public felt about a new medical facility in Buckhorn. So I think that we're spending a lot of municipal money, taxpayers' money, and I think that the public should have some input.
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with you, Councilor Franson. I think we do need some information to provide to the public before we have that meeting, and then we should have that. As a matter of fact, and I've floated this, I'll put it out there, not for consideration, but this may be a big enough investment, an important one, and a divisive enough one that we should consider putting a referendum onto the next election. Not only have a public input, but actually have taxpayers vote on whether that's an investment they are prepared to make with their tax dollars. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I do think the first step is we need to know whether or not it's feasible to put something in there to refrigerate the ring and what's required to do that, resource-wise, money-wise, and whether it can be accommodated at the current site of PCC. So I'm agreeing with both of you. It's just a question of timing.
Yeah, my take on it is that you do the feasibility study so you have the information to present to the people. We've already had a couple of surveys done by the Parks and Recreation and Culture Advisory Committee, and they've kind of supported the idea of a little better surfaces there. So I think that's the feasibility study gets you the information so you can have a public meeting with good information.
Well, we have a study from the school where all 85% of the parents were behind it. We've got what the Pine Ridge School Board that is behind it. Amateur sports are behind it. 52 different businesses between here and Peterborough advertise on the boards. And they're not getting anything out of it other than community support. So I think in terms of what Carol is suggesting, I think if you take an area the size of this and you put a put-aside out, it won't have a fucking Hindus. And I know, talking to what Peter is saying as far as the medical center is concerned, the medical center, if you remember, Peter, happened because we had a public meeting here in this building. And I turned to the clerk at the time and I said, can we hire an architect? And she said, yes. And that's what happened. You know, it wasn't consultation after the fact. That decision was made by the council at this table. Then we went about the business of determining where and how and everything else. But the decision was the council's to make. The decision of what we were doing with the roads depots, whether it's, because we had started out, we were going to do this in Buckhorn and that somewhere else and that somewhere else. The feasibility studies said, this is what's possible, this is what's not possible. And we moved with those possibilities. Keep in mind, we own the Buckhorn facility. We have an obligation to it, yes.
Of the 85 children that are in the Buckhorn School, how many are residents of Trent Lake?
175, not 85, 175.
How many residents of Trent Lake?
How many residents are in the BCC are not in Selwyn?
No, I'm asking about the school children in the school.
That I don't know. That I don't know. But I know for a fact that there's more children there now because of the Buckhorn Rink that used to go to Bridge North. And that's because I was supervising on the weekend. Yes,
And Mayor, I'd like to suggest that we
move on.
close out the discussion at this point.
Move on.
No, it's been good discussion. I think it's been excellent discussion. And Bill, thank you for sort of prompting some of it. And we can consider alternatives when we get to the solution.
Okay, do we have a seconder to that?
Make a motion that we receive the report from Bill Kent.
Okay, and vote please, all in favor? And that is carried. Okay, staff reports. Ivan Coombs.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Before you have Chelsea and I's reports from Public Works and Waste Management. I think Chelsea's around too. So if there's any questions, we'd be happy to answer you.
Well, I first of all want to say kudos to everybody who put this these quarterly reports on, because I would not want to have been part of this. I think you've all done a really, really good job. Do we have anybody on council who wants to question this? And if not, can we have a motion to approve? Or,
Make a motion to approve. Thank you for the information.
thank you. And so that is Councillor Lanshead and Deputy Mayor Windover is our seconder. Can we have a vote, please? In favor? Thank you. Motion is carried. Same to you, Declaration of Recreation. Have you anything in this report you want to single out? And is there anything council member would like to draw attention to?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'd be happy to answer any questions. I will highlight that in future reports, we're looking to include more data for Council in regards to where we're spending our time, and hopefully we can draw some trends. And if we're running into, delayed projects and whatnot, we can maybe use that data to determine why we are delaying.
Well, I know somebody on council is going to want the data. And I think she's got her hand up.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Dylan, great report.
Data, have you a question?
I do have a question, actually. It's kind of a nit, but I sort of read into your report that we've had a problem with light ballasts being defective in different buildings and so forth, and that seems to be a systemic problem. Am I right about that, and what are we doing about it?
Through you, Mayor, defective may not have been the right choice of words there. Light ballasts for fluorescent lights have a lifetime to them, be it it's several thousand hours. I don't know the figure off the top of my head. So typically when these buildings are built or the lights are upgraded, all of the lights are put in at the same time. So you'll start to see lights fail in large quantities over the span of about a year or so. So as we reach those end of life times for those, you'll see more purchases of new ballasts. New ballasts that are put in, they're all electronic and usually have the opportunity to upgrade to an LED bulb as well. But it's the nature of the fixture. Alternatives can be to implement an LED fixture. LEDs, while they are awesome as a sole fixture, it does come the problem does arise that if that something in that fixture fails, the whole fixture is done and you're basically replacing the whole thing or the strip within it. If a ballast fails or a bulb fails in a traditional like T8 or T5 fixture, you can replace just that ballast or just that bulb in that fixture. So unless the actual fixture is damaged itself, we try to stick with the existing fixture, just upgrade the internal so that it can use the LED technology and realize the energy savings.
Thank you, Dylan. And if this may surprise you, but what you put in and how you manage it is operational, and you should go ahead and continue to manage that. But you're right, the word defective kind of popped out at me thinking that it was a manufacturing defect. So perhaps, yeah, the wording might be.
We will address that in future. Thank you for the feedback.
Okay, have we any more questions on that particular report? If not, can we have a motion to approve? Okay. We see some hands, everybody up there? Okay, that motion is carried. Okay, Dylan, you're still on?
Yep.
Budget request.
Through you, Mayor Clarkson, can I just have the mover and seconder of that motion?
I'm sorry, it was Deputy Mayor Windover and maybe I jumped ahead of myself. Seconded?
Yeah.
Councilor Armstrong. Okay, Dylan, you're still on budget request.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As was alluded to on the January 27th meeting, this report is bringing forward a couple small budgetary changes that did not make the draft that was presented on the 27th. Those changes are a projected increase in revenue for Sandy Lake Cemetery based on 2020 actuals. An increase to the fleet operating due to the larger vehicles we purchased last year having a higher licensing fee that wasn't realized until December when our renewal comes up. So that was, we missed the boat on that one. And including the garden maintenance as approved by council for the specified gardens within the hamlet of Buckhorn. For a net increase to the budget of $5,800, as well as there's a request for a transfer from reserves to make some repairs to the number 2 rooftop unit at, sorry, can you hear me now?
chairperson.
I can hear someone now.
And I'm just testing. Are you able to hear us?
Yes, we are. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, everyone, thank you for your patience. Technology is wonderful when it works, but we've got efficient staff around here who got us hooked up before we had to adjourn for the day. So thank you, Dylan. And if you want to just continue with your repair information, I think you've completed it. And if you have, we will get a motion to accept. If you have anything else you want to bring forward, now's the time.
Through you, Mayor.
I think you're discussing the BRHC.
Through you, Mayor. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Great. Yeah, just to quickly recap, the BRHC request is to transfer $2,853.25 from reserves to repair a heat exchanger in rooftop unit number 2. It has a temporary solution in place, but a permanent one is needed to make that unit operating properly again. There's a pretty healthy reserve for the BRHC, as we all know, so we determined that it's probably the best source of those funds.
Okay, so can we have a motion to approve? Councillor Deputy Mayor Windover. Councillor Armstrong.
A second to receive the report, approve the budget requests, and to use the reserve money to support the BHRC repairs.
Perfect. Can we have a vote in favor, please? All in favor, and that is carried. Okay, Steve Brockbank, you're on.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Before you have my report as well. I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Council, any questions or motion to approve this?
Comment first.
Yes.
There's some interesting pictures in your report.
Yes.
And I will make a motion to receive your report for information.
Thank you. And you're going to second?
A second with a question, if I may. Steve, I saw that you onboarded 3 new volunteer firemen. Was that your target, and are you comfortable that you're fully resourced now?
Through you, Madam Mayor, Councillor Armstrong, that those we were hoping to have 10 to 15 more, but due to COVID, we kind of got sidetracked on that. So those that we hired were actually trained firefighters elsewhere before they came to us. So we took them ahead of everyone else, and we're just in the midst of starting our recruitment now to see if we can't pick up some more for this year. And we're gonna try and deal with the times at hand.
So if I may just be clear, so you're looking for 10 to 15 new recruits, is that right?
Correct. Through you, Mayor, I would like to have the complement of 60 if possible. Just as we get busier, it's taxing for everyone.
I think we all agree. I think you all have our thanks, our multiple thanks. Okay, can we have a motion to approve that, please? All in favor? Motion has carried. Hey, communications tower. Again, Steve?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Before you, you have a report with regards to replacing some equipment for our communications towers. I apologize for bringing it forward now, but we've just come to the resolution that this has been in service since 1998, this particular equipment, and it has a life expectancy of approximately 10 years. And like all electronics, I think we've definitely got our money's worth out of this. And we've spent as much in repairs as we have buying new stuff. So I've been in conversation with roads and building and parks who all use the tower as well. And we've spent, I would say, hundreds of hours this year because of storms and all that with power outages, and we have to send firefighters up to start a generator and get our communications going every time this happens. So with replacing this equipment and putting in some more redundancies, we should limit having to put staff there and be able to use them towards emergency situations. So we're hoping to, in conversation with Donna, get the money from the service delivery grant funding. But if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, have we got questions? Deputy Mayor Wendell? Ron?
Permission to do it.
Okay. So you're in favor? Do I have a second? Yeah. Okay, Councilor Franson. Discussion. Councilor Larson.
Is there any thought being put into, through you, to having a backup generator that automatically starts when we have a power outage? Because I think that's some of the major problems there.
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Lamb said you're 100% correct. I'm in the midst of putting an agreement together with the tower owner and the building owner, but all the equipment in the building that is used for Trent Lakes communications is ours. And there's no agreement at this time for that type of service. So with this battery backup should get us approximately 20 hours of backup. And it would be a redundancy whether we had a standby generator or not. Our experience, sometimes a standby generator doesn't always start, so the batteries would still be a redundancy to keep our communications open.
Thank you very much.
Okay, good comments. What else? I think we're ready for the vote. So Deputy Mayor Wendover made the motion, Jesse? And Councillor Lamb said second.
Councilor Francis.
Yeah.
That's right, okay. All in favor? Motion has carried. John Asenga, are you there?
Yes, I am. Through you, Madam Mayor and Council, in front of you, you have first on the list is the increase to the building permit fees for 2021. It's a fairly standard report, and I propose if there are any questions that Councillor or the Mayor may have.
Okay, thank you. Do we have questions? Councillor Franson.
Yeah, I have one question, and it's to deal with administrative penalties, building with other permits, going down to the annual review of residential structures. Is that a correct figure, 4,471.46?
If I could request Councillor, through you, Madam Mayor, Councillor Franson, if you could turn towards the mic, I'm barely hearing you.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you.
I'm just asking about administrative penalties of building with other permits. And you go
Yes.
down to the annual review on the residential structure. And the figure is 4,471.46. I was just wondering if that's an accurate figure.
It would be an accurate calculated figure. It's the administrative penalty fees stem from before the building code worked, where we were allowed to double the permit fees when it was a situation where someone was caught building without a permit. So we have set fees, whether it's a residential application, if it's an accessory building, where we have set fees that when we catch somebody building without a permit, it's a set amount. So that number is a calculated amount through the building permit fees under administrative penalties.
Okay, and the annual review is, what function? What you do on the annual review?
So could you repeat that again, please?
The annual review, what do you do on that?
So yeah, so the annual review is basically a number that we generate that we're looking forward to see whether or not there's more, a larger amount that may be attributed to that.
Okay. Okay,
So
that's fine.
Yeah,
Thank
to
you.
give you an idea, basically we look at our situation in regards to when we put an order to comply on a property. It is still our discretion in regards to someone was caught building without a permit. If the person works with the situation and comes in and applies for a permit, then it is our discretion where we would add the additional fees. If the person's being delinquent and taking a long time about doing it, that the fee would definitely apply, yes.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Anybody else? Okay, can we have a motion then to accept this report?
Sure.
Councilor Franzen, Deputy Mayor Windover, all motion to approve. And that motion is carried. Okay, Donna Senga, discretionary sewage system, maintenance inspections. Motion.
Yeah, so through you, Madam Mayor, we had a great presentation done by Julie Ingram. Well laid out, well thought out, and some great points. So in front of you, you have the discretionary report. Myself and staff are recommending option 2 in this report. And if you have any questions, I'd be here to answer them.
Okay. Questions, council? If not, a motion.
I will make a motion to support that.
Okay. so
Option
that-
number 2, the advanced mandatory sewage system maintenance inspection program.
Moved by Councilor Lamshead, seconded by Deputy Mayor Windover.
Yep.
All in favor? Motion is carried. Okay, John, you're still on building and planning.
Okay, so now we're up to our year-end report. So in front of you, Madam Mayor and Council, you have a detailed report. It's well done by our administration assistant, Derek. He does a splendid job at presenting the numbers and facts. If there's anything that your Madam Mayor or Council have a question, I'm here to help out.
Okay, council, any questions? John, I was pleased to speak with you a few days ago, and you were saying about the amount of building permits that we issued in December. This is looking good for the future of the area, do you not think?
I much agree with you, yes.
Okay, motion to accept this report, please. Mayor Windover, Councilor Armstrong, all in favor? Motion is carried. Adele Arbor, temporary manager of building and planning, implementation of cloud permit software.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. At the last council meeting, I reported good news on this permitting system, and this report is for information purposes, and I truly look forward to having the new permitting system up and running very shortly.
Okay, comments, questions? Councilor Ramsey.
I'm just wondering if we're going to have any support for people trying to use this system, because it's going to be new for everyone. I'm sure there's going to be some need for some additional education.
Bill, do you want to speak to that?
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor. I anticipate some such educational component where we could provide something on the website to show people how to use it initially. And as always, our staff are very supportive and helpful to the public that call in.
Thank you. Anyone else? I think from a county perspective, they have moved ahead quite nicely on this. And I was really pleased when I came back from one of the meetings with tooting the success of this, only to be told that you guys were well into the process. So it's going to mesh really, really well with what the county's doing, and many of the other municipalities are going to buy into this also. But by the sounds of things, it's going to really expedite the work that you do and make it a lot easier for people to find. Okay, can we have a motion? You concur with that, Adele? Lost it.
Yes, I concur.
Okay, motion please. Councilor
I'll make a motion that we receive the report from the temporary planning manager regarding the implementation of cloud permit software for information purposes.
I'm recommending some training. Okay, motion to approve. All in favor? And that motion is carried. Oh, Donnie, you've been sitting there so quiet. 2020 Q4 report.
Thank you, through you. Before you is the finance quarterly reporting. If there are any questions?
Questions from council? It's a ton of work. Somebody's got to ask her a question. Councilor Armstrong, sorry.
Fine, thank you, for doing that, Mayor. Great information. Obviously, we have a lot of flag invoices and other things to still come in for the year. I'm just wondering, at what date do you close the books?
Right, so through you, the audit is currently happening this week. It's kind of a unique year. We're doing it electronically mostly. So those figures should come. I've done many of the entries already, so I will certainly provide those within the next couple of weeks.
Don, if we wanted to request increasing the amount of money given to the Greater Harbour Historical Society, I'm not sure in what percentage, but is this the time to talk about that, or will that come later?
Yeah, so through you, there was an amount determined already for that organization, and that was based on the amount that is in our budget that we typically award based on previous year's tax levy. So I would suggest perhaps if that is something you're looking at, maybe under new business, something to that effect.
Okay. That's what I was wondering. All right, do we have a motion here, or are there any more comments on this report? I think you do such a good job, we don't even know where to start. Councilor Armstrong, do you want a motion?
Motion to receive.
Okay, and a seconder, Kathleen Windover, all in favor? That motion is carried. Again, our thanks. Jesse Clark, Director of Corporate Services, and this is Fixall.
Through you, Mayor Parkson, we just missed the administration report. Donna has one more for her
Okay.
quarterly report for
Sorry.
administration. Right. So through you, before you is the administration report. I would like to take this opportunity and just to echo some of the comments made already. So the work plans presented by departments along with the quarterly report really show the work that was done this year, and I can't thank staff enough for that. So that's the management staff that presented those reports today, but it's also all the staff behind those staff. So I just want to echo those comments. So yes, so before you, the administration report, which also includes economic development, if there are any questions.
I would make a motion to receive and maybe just request a little more consistency in future work plan updates. But it's a terrific way to measure where we're at and what we've accomplished.
And do we have a second? Because I have no idea what she's talking about.
I will second that.
Councilor Lynch. All in favor? Motion is carried. Now, Jesse, Ms. Fix-It.
Thank you. Through you, just before I begin, I am getting comments that council and I think everyone in this room is really hard to hear. So if we could just make an effort to speak into the microphone so the public can hear. My report is my quarterly report and a summary of 2020. Outlines the accomplishments of the Corporate Services Department as well as outstanding resolutions and resolutions completed throughout the year.
Okay, if we can have a motion and then a conversation. If anybody wants to go into this.
I will make a motion to receive.
Councillor Lamshead made the motion, Deputy Mayor Windover seconded. Any other conversation? If not, all in favor? That motion is carried. Hey, Jesse, electronic signs and county road allowances.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Clark.
Or election signs, I'm sorry.
Election, yeah. The County of Peterborough directed their staff to undertake consultation with the lower tier municipalities related to the delegation authority to regulate the placement of election signs on county roadways. In the municipality of Trent Lakes, that would be county roads 49, 121, 36, 507, and 28, which is also known as Lakehurst Road. They provided 4 options regarding the delegation of this authority. Staff reviewed the options and recommend option 4, which is the rejection of the authority to regulate the placement of election signs in county roadways. And this would be consistent with the current county sign bylaw in which county staff are responsible for the enforcement. But we do also recommend that the Trent Lakes election sign bylaw, which was updated in 2018, be reviewed by county staff on preparing the new bylaw, especially to include provisions related to prohibiting election signs on county road allowances immediately adjacent to property owned, leased, or maintained by the municipality, as many municipal buildings are located on these county roads.
Okay, thank you for that. Do we have comment? Do we have a motion? Councillor Franson? Are you going to motion to approve? We have a seconder and then conversation.
Second that.
Okay, Councillor Lamshead? Do we have conversation? Anybody want to jump into this one? Okay, motion, all in favor? And that is carried. Now we have a lot of correspondence for information. Does anybody want to pull any of these forward? If not, can we have a motion to receive all of those? Deputy Mayor Windover, Councillor Franson, and motion to approve. Motion is carried. Insurance premiums, correspondence for action. First one, Municipality of Charlton and Dak, Grey Highlands and Larder Lake insurance premiums. We need a motion and a comment. What do you want?
I would like to support this because we are in the same position. Our insurance premiums went up 117% in 1 year, and that's difficult for everyone to take. So I would like to support that.
Okay, have we got a seconder? Deputy Mayor Windover. And at some point, we need to put a notice of motion to go to RAM or one of these to suggest that we look at self-insuring. And I know the county right now is in the process of forming a motion because these are not sustainable. So all in favor for that motion? And that motion has carried. Municipal of West Grey, Schedule 8 of the provincial budget, Bill 229. Motion, please.
Mayor, I believe we've dealt with this in the past about the conservation authority.
So then
They
you
were
want to
talking
do
about the provincial budget and the cuts to the conservation authority. And I think we've dealt with this in the past.
So then do we have a motion to receive or support or? Councillor Lamshead?
Comment, I think this is more about the species at risk studies not being needed for the forestry programs on Crown land. So I would like to support this because I think we should have species at risk regardless of where the forestry is on Crown land or private property. I think that we don't get a second chance to bringing a species back once we've exterminated it. And I think we would really be good to protect this. We have a few conversations later about forests, so I think that it's important to support this.
Okay, so we've got a motion, and did we have a seconder? Councillor Franzen's our seconder. Motion to approve. Motion is carried. Town of Bracebridge infrastructure funding. Motion, please. Motion, please.
I'll make a motion to support it again because it's difficult for us. We have many different varieties of roads that run through our municipality, and we are responsible for a lot of them. And I think it's important that we get some better ideas as to how our infrastructure should be repaired and some percentages of other government agencies to assist us with that. I would like to support.
Well said. Seconder, Deputy Mayor Windover. And all in favor? That is carried. Town of Asheville, Norwood, Community Safety Wellbeing Plan, extension request. Motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay. Deputy Councillor Franzen. Councillor Armstrong. And all in favor? Question or comment?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if staff are working on a community safety and well-being plan.
Yes.
So through you, that is something that's on the work plan for the CAO. We did have a meeting last year. It is a plan that we're working on jointly with the other lower tiers, with the city of Peterborough, the county, and I would support the recommendation that we delay the timing. This part of this is a very big public consultation component, which can't happen with COVID. So,
thank you.
So then the motion should be to receive.
So through you, no, to support.
To support.
Yes.
Okay.
Please.
Okay. All right. Is that clear with the mover and the seconder? All in favor? That motion has carried. Township of Southwest Oxford photo radar. Here's one after my heart. Okay, motion and discussion, if anybody has one. Discussion. Motion. Somebody. Councillor Armstrong.
I make a motion to support it. It's in alignment with the request that we recently made for 557.
Yeah.
Seconder, Mayor Windover. Any more discussion? Yes.
Yeah, I'm not in support of a broad use of photo radar. I think it's the start of Big Brother's watching you.
Well, when Big Brother watched us before, we didn't behave like this, but that's a different. Okay, do you want to record it?
It's a slippery slope.
Okay, do you want a recorded vote?
No, I'm just my comment is I find it a slippery slope, and you don't know where you would end up. We don't want to end up like you.
Okay, any other discussions? And I'm going to call for the vote. All in favor? Yeah, vote is carried. United Counties of Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry, small businesses. Councillor Armstrong.
I would make a motion just to receive. I think that it's within the jurisdiction of the health departments to make the determination about reopening. So I don't want to interfere with that process.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Franzen? Okay, so you're just receiving this, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. All in favor? That motion is carried. Buckhorn advertising request. Motion, please. Councillor Lamson.
I know it's difficult just after we're doing a draft budget, but I would support this out of our allocated $3,000 of discretionary grant money. We did it before. It's a good, it's good advertising for our communities.
Donna?
Typically, this amount is paid through the economic development budget, but I would suggest this is the first year we actually have council their own advertising budget of $3,000 for this type of thing. So if council approved this, we could just put it through that budget.
So where are they advertising? Who's doing this? Okay,
For you, it's an Explore Buckhorn publication. They do, I think they have several other publications besides Buckhorn, but this one specifically to the Buckhorn area.
but is this not tied to the tourist association? Because Deb Cross is their liaison person. Like, is this not duplicating what the tourist association already does? I'm curious.
I think it's a separate publication.
Oh, I think it's a separate publication. But I'm just surprised that it isn't managed through the tourist association. Okay. Motion, please. Councillor Armstrong?
I would second, I think. Yes, second Councillor Lamb's motion with the understanding that this is already.
All right, can we have a vote, please? Motion to support? And that has carried. Bylaws on the agenda memorandum. Jesse, you're going to speak to this?
Yes, thank you through you, Mayor Clarkson. There's quite a number of bylaws on today's agenda that didn't have an associated report or public meeting. The first is bylaw B 2021-003, which is the fees and charges bylaw. Council received the report at the January 12th meeting. The only change has been that the mixed load sorted was increased to $40 per cubic yard. B 2021-10, 11, and 13 are all related to zoning bylaw amendment file number 2021. A public meeting was held on January 12th and was supported by council. So there's the zoning bylaw amendment, a merger agreement, and 2 merger agreements for the severances. Bylaw number 2021-14 is the zoning bylaw amendment for Bouchard, who had a public meeting on January 12th and was supported by council. B 2021-15 and 16 are for zoning bylaw amendment file number 2020, which was Wakefield. And a public meeting was held on October 20th, 2020, and was deferred until receipt of a new reference plan, which the municipality now has. So one is a zoning bylaw amendment, and the second is the execution of a development agreement. Bylaws B 2021-17, 18, and 19 are all to sign mitigation measure agreements for severance file B 3218A. There's 3 different lots. And B 2021, 21, and 22 are to stop up, close, and transfer the original shore road allowance in front of properties in series 29 and 30.
And we need one motion for all of those?
Through you, there's no motion necessary for the memo. There's just a motion necessary for every bylaw.
Right. One motion.
Through you, no separate motions for each bylaw.
Okay. So can we have a motion for the first one? Councillor
I will make a
Lambshead?
motion that we approve bylaw 2021-003 fees and charges bylaw.
Okay, and a seconder, Deputy Mayor Windover, all in favor? Motion is carried. Second one, Jesse?
Yes, I'll make a motion to approve the 2021-10, a zoning bylaw amendment for Cowan. Can I include the next 2 as well, since they all apply to the same property in my motion? That would be an approval for 2021, 10, 11, and 12.
10, I believe it's just 10 and 11. There is no 12.
Oh, sorry.
10 and 11.
If I could make a motion to approve the 2021, 10, and 11.
Sure.
For the Cowan property.
Okay, and you're making the motion, seconder, please. Councillor Franzen, all in favor? That is carried. Now the bylaw for Stephen, 2021-013. Motion,
Motion to approve.
Okay, Councillor Lambshead. Seconded by Councillor Armstrong. All in favor? That is carried. B 2021-014 for Richard. Motion, please.
Make a motion to approve.
Okay, Councillor Lambshead. Deputy Mayor Windover. All in favor? That motion has carried. B 2021-15 for Wakefield. Motion.
I'll make a motion to approve 2021-015 and 016, both of which relate to.
Okay, and the seconder would be Councillor Franson. All in favor? Motion is carried. Mitigation measures 017 for Stephen. Motion, please.
Those three items in one motion.
Would be 2021, 17, 18, and 19.
Yes.
Okay,
I will make a motion to approve.
and the seconder, Deputy Mayor Windover. All in favor? Motion has carried. Yes.
Make sure that everybody raises their hand and it shows in the screen, because I'm not sure.
Okay. All right. Well said. One thing I can't hear. Okay, mitigation measurement agreement 018 for Stefan. Motion, please.
We've done that, but I would make a motion to approve the stop up and close and sell series 29, V21, V2021-021.
Through your collection, Councilor Lambshead, you're one ahead. We would need one for May 2021-20, which is official plan
Oh.
amendment number 54. You're supportive of that.
You would like to support that?
Well, in a minute, I just got to make sure I know where I'm at. Oh, yes.
You think you're
I would like to make that motion, sure.
And can we have a seconder, please? Councillor Armstrong? All in favor? Hands up. Ron, over there. That's a boy. Thank you very much. Now, 2020, we've done, right? 21, stop up and close. Is it done?
No.
No, it's not.
I started to make a motion, so I guess I should finish.
Okay.
Approve that.
So that's Councillor Lambshead has approved that one, and the seconder would be Deputy Mayor Windover. And all in favor? Hands up, nice and high. There you go. Thank you. That was 22, right? Stop up and close. Pardon?
That was 21.
That was 21. So we need to do 22, stop up and close, sell series 30. Motion, please. Councillor Franzen?
Yeah.
Okay. Seconded by Councillor Lambshead. All in favor? Thank you. Now, business arising out of a previous meeting. Not any business. Seeing none. Okay, we have a notice of motion by myself, so I am leaving the chair. And Councillor Windover is going to make it. Or do I do this? Jesse? Jesse?
Through you, Mayor Clarkson, you may state the motion that you are making and then
leave?
Through you, you don't have to physically vacate your chair. You can
Just say I'm gone.
Yep.
Okay. So notice of motion, Mayor Clarkson, Buckhorn Playground. Whereas the Economic Development Advisory Committee has identified a need for a playground in Buckhorn, and whereas work plans are being finalized for the Odenang Park, and whereas there is no accessible playground at any of the sites along the Trent system, and whereas in conversation with several quarries in Trent Lakes as to their wish to possibly partner with the municipality to create a park, therefore the council requests staff led by the Director of Recreation Facilities to inspect the park, determine a suitable location, and secure some pricings of equipment. So I think it requires a second.
Second. What? Second.
You can say. The motion, the second motion is the chair. We'll call for the vote.
Guess who calls for the vote?
Through you, Deputy Mayor Window, will call for the vote
Yeah.
after any
We have-
discussion.
I don't make the comment.
Oh, sure.
I don't believe that's the right location for a park. It should be for the park in Buckhorn. I think it should be our property that we own that's close to the library and close to the daycare center. I think that'd be a more appropriate area. And my feeling is right now, to deal with the park, when we're dealing with COVID, we're putting more stress on staff and we're putting also stress on ratepayers. I mean, there's going to be costs involved. They're going to be, a lot of people are going to be in dire straits the next year or two. So I think we should hold the line.
Sorry, yes.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor Window. A comment to build on that. I think this is a good idea. I think a playground would be an asset to have in Hamlet Buckhorn. However, the Economic Development Advisory Committee already made a request for $87,000 in this year's budget, of which we approved $66,000. And that number only because it can be funded through reserves, through Parks reserves. And and in that same motion, gave the committee the discretion to see how they wanted to use that $66,000. So I would suggest that this request get flowed back through the Economic Development Advisory Committee if they want to bump one of the other things that were on their list, such as a gazebo, a garden, a chair, et cetera, and prioritize this over those for this year. That would be at their discretion. And/or they can bring this forward for next year. But I think the bottom line is that it should be funded out of the $66,000. The motion be that this be funded out of the $66,000 that the Economic Development Advisory Committee has been awarded, subject to their determination of it as a priority.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, I can't make a motion until we voted on the other. My
Just a minute.
apologies.
Can I speak to this now?
Through you, Deputy Mayor Window, the chair.
Yes.
Okay, this would not be a budget item if it goes the way it should. I have contacted the different quarries, and they're on side, depending on what they have shown, to actually fund this. They would like to have it as a something that they do, similar to what they did with the medical center, where they got together and raised the money. So they're interested in doing the same thing there, and in which case they would. What Dylan's job would be to analyze space in that overlay park that would be suitable for it and get some pricing on playground equipment. And then the quarries are interested in seeing what the proposal is, then putting money toward it, and the playground would be subject to the money raised. So it would be modular. So as you raised more money, it would build more. And we're in the process of starting Lions Club. And Lions are very, very interested in children's playgrounds. So my suggestion is if this were to go forward, it would not be on the tax bill, it would be money raised.
Just, would someone like to make that an emotion then?
I have a further comment.
Yeah.
Are we going to build a playground for the people that are in the Trent waterway, or do you want to build a playground for the children that live in Buckhorn?
I don't see there's a difference.
The playground that would be close to the library would be more advantageous to the people that live in Buckhorn. There's children programs associated with the library. There's a daycare center within a couple hundred feet of that lot. So I think it would be more appropriate for the children in Buckhorn to have a playground in that location.
I think if there's any will for this, we should let them maybe have input as to where the location would be. Is it?
I think the Parks and Rec committee should be involved in this. I mean, if this isn't Parks and Rec, nothing is. Why do we have the committee if we continually try to bypass them?
I think you're taking it into context, but that's not my opinion, or that's not my. I give.
So is anyone making a motion now in any way?
I think you have a motion and a second.
I can't support the motion. I'd like to ask for the recorded vote.
Okay. All in favor or none? How do you vote? You vote?
Through you, Deputy Mayor Wendover, Councillor Francis asked for a recorded vote, so we'll just double check the process for that.
Before our conversation part's over, can we not include the idea that this would be self-funded, not, and
Yes.
have some input from the Parks and Recreation and Culture Advisory Committee? That's what they're there for. That's what we designed it for. I mean, if you include those two things, this is something I can support. I mean, I think it's important. I think it's the location will be determined by staff.
Can I add that to your motion?
Yeah.
Is that a friendly amendment?
I'll withdraw my request for a vote.
And just one further comment, as Carol and I know, this idea came forward at Economic Development. Because one of the young ladies there is a motor with a young family. And she said they have traveled from one end of the Trent to the other, and there's no such place. So if there's a place for children, then the parents are going to go to the restaurants, are going to go to the drugstore, they're going to go to other. So there is a reason for putting it in that space. It is an economic development opportunity. So you call for the vote?
Is that full-time motion?
Can we hear the motion?
Yes, please.
You call for a vote?
No, I'd like to hear the motion.
Hear the motion.
Through you, Deputy Mayor Wendover, I believe there were some suggested amendments made. Mayor Clarkson was the original mover of the motion. If we could just clarify what amendments were made to the original motion that was proposed.
I do believe the amendment was to include the Parks and Recreation and Culture Advisory Committee in developing this idea and to make sure that it is self-funded.
Mayor Clarkson, are you okay with that amendment to your motion?
Yes.
How about the location? The location?
Oh, yes, sorry. Yeah, the location will be decided by staff.
Yeah. Is that in the motion?
Through you, Deputy Mayor Wendover, the motion does speak specifically to Odenang Park in the second whereas, which I believe implies that the location that staff would be determining would be a location at Odenang Park.
It's not my motion. That's not my original motion. It's, if the mayor's okay with changing that line, then we certainly can.
I'm not in favor. I'm not in favor of changing it. I think the space is there, the park is there, the parking is there, the opportunity to service the community plus some tourism. I think the location is ideal. So no, I'm not in favor of changing it. So consultation, I'm okay with, but not changing the location.
I'm going to re-request the recorded vote. Okay, because I don't think it was.
So the motion is then just that it's going to be at the park, right?
And self-funded. and staff recommendation and some consultation with the Parks and Rec. For anybody who knows Buckhorn, there is no surplus lands around the library.
We have a piece of property by the library, it's one of the council purchase.
So we call a vote?
Yeah.
Ron, do you want to call for that? That's your job.
Record a vote?
Through you, the calling of the votes will commence with the member who requested the record a vote, so that's Councillor Franzen.
Opposed?
Councillor Lansett,
Yes, in favor.
Deputy Mayor Wendover,
You vote.
Councillor Armstrong, Mayor Clarkson,
In favor.
Okay, motion carries.
Okay, and I'm back in my chair.
You're back there again now?
Okay, Councillor Armstrong, you have a motion.
Mayor Wendover's first.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Defer.
I just jumped right ahead of you, Ron.
Wow. You can do it, you know.
No.
I'll make a note. I'll just do it.
Nope, you can read that if you want.
Okay. Okay, whereas there's such discussion concerning the necessity upgrade of the Buckhorn Sports Pad at the Buckhorn Community Center. And whereas the changing weather conditions have made it impossible to continue its present functioning as a natural ice rink. And whereas no feasible study has been conducted, therefore, council directs staff with the Director of Recreation and Facility to hire a consultant to consider the improvement, which will consist roughly with washrooms, change rooms, Zamboni room, artificial ice plant, walls and necessity infrastructure, parking, septic, and a fire suppression system in Buckhorn Sports Pad.
And I will second that for discussion. Yes,
I would attempt to make a friendly amendment, or just an amendment regardless, that we get input from both the Parks and Recreation and Culture Advisory Committee and BCC as to the scope of the viability study. I mean, the last two lines are very inclusive, and I don't know that we need to, I think the decision to make the scope is separate from this motion.
if I can speak to that, where that came from was anybody that we've talked to that does the study. Once you put a plant in, it comes with requirements. So a lot of what's in there will be required because of the ice plant, suppression systems, all the rest of that stuff. So that's why that's in there. So when the person, whoever we do, does that, that will be part of that discussion. I don't think we can direct that because I think that's what we're giving the firm to do. Yes.
Thank you for doing that. Then I think if that's the case, we don't really need to include this. And I would add, suggestion, add Councilor Lancett's amendment around developing stuff before parties and take out the part, consider the improvements, which will consist roughly of, and simply say to review the feasibility of
Artificial ice.
That will be included, whatever options and ideas that are needed. So I don't think we need it in the motion.
Go ahead.
Did you want it?
I was just going to ask if the member was prepared to accept those amendments. friendly otherwise.
You want to recommend it now?
Sure, I will. Thank you. I will try my best. So everything stays the same except for the last therefore. I believe it's been changed to that council direct staff with the director of recreation and facilities to hire a consultant to review the feasibility of artificial ice with input from the PRCIC and the BCC as to the scope of the viability study.
Yes, Don.
Might I just add to that, that the funds for that work come out of the BCC reserve for that facility?
And that reserve is just over $100,000, Peter.
Yes, I know. It's still taxpayers.
No, the majority of that was donated.
I have a comment or a question. I gave everybody this article, and it was a Canadian Tire rink that they had a contest, and they gave it to individuals for their community. They shared it with their neighborhood. And one of the rinks, at least one of the rinks, was done with synthetic ice. And apparently it worked out pretty well. They're pretty big rinks because Canadian Tire uses them in their advertising. And the owner of the rink said that it's a little slow when you start, but once you get used to it, it feels like natural ice. He uses a sledge operation, which I don't understand. I don't understand ice, but apparently it works well. I have a niece that has a similar rink, and they're in North Bay. So, and they put it down in April, and they put it down in September, October, and they lift it up in April. They have parties on it. They seem to enjoy it. They have a son that plays hockey, so he uses it all the time. So I think there should be a further investigation on synthetic ice, because that would save us a lot of money.
Well, to start with, it's been investigated, and it works good on cruise ships and places where they've got controlled use. It does not work well in facilities where you're going to have hockey or whatever, because it's a different type of ice. So it's not that it hasn't been considered, and it's also something that if you wanted to have, you know, the engineer or whatever comment on that. But if it was readily available, you can be darn sure they'd be out there. But you know, it's certainly something that you could ask the whoever's doing the study to comment on that.
Sure.
That's why we get to comment.
Just don't want to look at it.
Yes.
Just a comment if I'm making them, and perhaps in consultation with the Parks Corporation, the culture committee, that could be brought forward.
Yeah.
To be included. So I think that can be accommodated through the
And I did call Dylan and ask him for his comments. He didn't return the call.
So am I gathering then that we're done with all of this stuff? We're going to now get somebody to actually go and do the study? Because at the last meeting, we had Peter go to the BCC and we had Carrie go to the Parks and Rec. So we've already done that. Do we do that again? Or is it time to bite the bullet, hire the person, get the study done, and then see where we're at? Because we can go on like this forever. Yes, Terry.
I think the input is merely to scope the study, to make sure we're getting the study done for what. I think it's not a big delay, it's just a minor delay to make sure we get this study done in the proper manner that decides what Trent Lakes actually needs. I think it's well worth a little delay to make sure we have input from the right organizations.
I wish we had John Asinga on this call, because he knows what the requirements are once you put the plant in, because that's going to determine the scope of this operation. It's not going to be what organizations want. It's going to be what the scope of this operation requires. But anyway, if you want to delay it again, so be it. but you're not going to get a consultant who's going to consult to whatever whim you have. We want artificial ice. Basic. Tell us if that space fits, if the space doesn't fit. End of discussion. If it does fit, then you move forward with exactly what it's going to look like, get some costing, whatever. But we're nowhere near that. We're trading water.
So
We have a motion.
the consultant, can he not just put in his comment on this other ice? I never heard of it before.
Oh, they'll certainly. The consultant that Donna will hire, staff will hire. There are people out there who do nothing but rates.
Right.
That's who you want. You want somebody that takes a look at the thing. They don't have to start from scratch. You want this. This is what the rules and regulations require you to have. This is the space you need. And then if that works out all right, the next step is you get a planner. There's a name for them. And then they cost it. Project manager. And then the project manager costs it. And then once that costing is done, we come back to the township and say, okay, this is the scenario. Are we in or are we out? But both those professionals have to be involved in this because the rest of us are just treading water.
I think that's exactly what
I'd
this
like to
motion
call
is.
for the vote. So I can make a motion to do that.
No, through you, there was some friendly amendments made. I don't think there's been any since the last time I read the motion. But I would like confirmation from the mover, who's Deputy Mayor Windover, and the seconder, Mayor Clarkson, that they're okay with the changes that were proposed. If you like, I can read it again.
Yeah,
Okay, it's the same beginning, just the last paragraph changed to therefore council directs staff with the director of recreation facilities to hire a consultant to review the feasibility of artificial ice with input from the Parks, Recreation and Culture Advisory Committee and the Buckhorn Community Center as to the scope of the viability study, and further that funds for this project be transferred from the Buckhorn Community Center Reserve.
Isn't it the Buckhorn Sports Pad Reserve?
Sorry.
Buckhorn Community Center rink.
No, not the Buckhorn Community Center rink. There's a Buckhorn, it is the Trent Lakes rink in Buckhorn. It is not community center rink.
So through you, that's the setup of the reserve. That's what it's currently called. So that's
Okay,
why.
that's not for people who are listening to this. It's not a BCC reserve. It's a Trent Lakes reserve for the Buckhorn Ice Pad. BCC is not attached to that money in any way, shape, or form.
Right. Through you, it was more a location.
Yep. If we're amending this thing, let's put a time frame for when this comes back. So whether it's the next meeting or whatever, but let's put a time frame so that we're not fooling around with this thing in May. Terry, what's the normal meeting time?
I think they're having a meeting once a week right now. I would say we need probably,
2 weeks?
I would say a month.
Yeah.
I would say a month to get.
Yeah, if you gotta get someone
That's
to
not,
do it.
it's only 2 meetings away for us.
How did the
I'd say bring it back.
meetings go this week that you attended? How did they go?
Well, the one that I didn't attend went very tumultuous, but it was organized at the end.
Okay, so we are going to put, an amendment on that then, or added to that is
30 days.
30
Get
days,
back to us.
2 meetings.
Yeah.
What's
Is there a
our,
maximum money amount for the study?
it'll be what it is. We had a really good
Yeah.
deal, but we can't take that good
They
deal.
aren't,
Don't get that.
Yeah, I think if I may, once we get the schedule, we'll prepare. We'll have to approve that, then it'll go out and see what the
Yeah.
bidders come back on, and council will decide to approve or not. So I think we'll have another pick the cat, as it were.
Because there was a question at the Parks and Rec that when they reviewed the motion.
Right.
Vote?
Through you,
will once again ask if Deputy Mayor Windover and Mayor Clarkson are fine with the amendments made to the original motion.
As long as the timeline is in there.
Through you, I have within 30 days.
Okay. Good. All in favor? That motion has carried. Did you still want a recorded vote?
No,
But you voted.
I know that I voted no.
Okay, but a no, without a yes, it's a no.
It's a no. Yep.
Okay. Now, Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Well, you're very welcome.
So just background, I think everybody may know, the Ministry of Natural Resource and Forestry has a 10-year 2021 to 2031 forest management plan out for public consultation. Included in that is the Catchcoma Forest. There has been a fair bit of discussion about a stand of old and or mature hemlock that is in that area, and a number of organizations, including the Catchcoma Cottage Association, the Catchcoma Forest Stewardship Committee, and also Catchcoma Cavendish Community Ratepayers Association, GCs, have all written supportive letters to the MNR to ensure that there is adequate management, if you will, of that old and mature hemlock stand. So my motion, I'd actually like to amend it a little bit and say that the municipality of Trent Lake submit a letter to MNRF during the public consultation phase of the 10-year forest management plan for the Bancroft Linden Forest, supporting the CCRAI letter, and I think we can continue to say, and encouraging their support for appropriate environmental and societal protection of the old and mature hemlock forest in the Catchcoma Forest.
Question, has there been any aging of those trees? And what is the life expectancy of that?
There's one in there, that's supposedly 350 feet. I think that's the oldest one.
Told.
375 years old.
That's
I'd like to second motion, so we can get that.
Okay. So you're seconding that motion?
Yes, I am.
Okay, sorry. All right. Councilor Lansing.
And yes, there is a 300-plus-year-old tree. There has been a core taken out of it, and they missed the center of the core. So in the center, it could be 30, 40, 50 years. I'm not sure. It is over 300 years old.
What's the lifespan?
I don't even know if there is one. Probably, I don't think there is one. If they're a healthy tree and they can continue to succulate, they will survive. But it's not a very large piece of the forest in there that we're talking about, honestly. It's a very small piece to protect a few natural trees that have been around here for 300 years.
Carol, the county forest in Peterbilt, which is owned by Peterbilt and Alberta, they've got some preservation going on there. I don't know how they're doing it. But I'm in favor of your motion, but I think it would be interesting to touch base with Sheraton to find out just what they're doing in terms of government and everything else to protect the forest.
But maybe just to add a couple of things. This is on Crown land. So it's within our geographical boundaries, but it's on Crown land. The other thing that you should be aware of is that there is a discrepancy in terms of what the ministry believes is old and mature hemlock. They've designated 15 to 20 hectares, and other groups who believe it is a much larger area. And they are in discussions currently to try and find consensus. And in the letter of both CCREI and ours, we're not getting into the middle of that. We're just saying,
protect it.
Yes, like have some responsible management for it. Continue to meet with the groups and ensure there's responsible management for that.
So today you would like to have a letter of support from the township?
Yes.
Anybody care to, I will make that motion if nobody else wants to.
Made and seconded.
Okay.
So I did.
So if there's nothing to be added to that, Call for the vote. All in favor? That is carried. Well done.
Thank you for bringing that forward, Carol.
Oh,
That's an important issue in my eyes as well.
you're welcome. Thank you. Okay, Jesse, fixer of all. Speaking to notice of vacancy for parks, recreational.
Here for you, we were advised of a resignation on the Parks, Recreation and Culture Committee, and we have thanked Member Averill for his contribution to the committee. And I'm just letting council and the public know that we will be advertising a notice of vacancy. It should be up on our website tomorrow for that spot on that committee.
Yes.
Just a question about that, through Madam Mayor. Is there a point in time in council term where we no longer fill the vacancy? Where we just leave it because there's not sufficient time to onboard somebody new and really be effective? You probably don't have a policy around that. I'm just asking if there's sort of a precedent.
Through you, we do have a committee and board policy, and I believe it does speak to it, but it's very close to an election, which we are about a year and a half out from, so we would still be filling it. Okay, thank you.
Well, and I think where it comes to these two, they're not, these committees are not necessarily term related. A lot of them will stay on those terms. It's not like they're elected to that position. Like if you look at our economic development, we won't, at the end of this term, we won't say to everybody, be gone, we're going to get a new batch or get whatever. As long as people want to stay in that role, we tend to keep them. So I think that's what's different. These are not elected positions.
Through you, Mayor Clarkson, the term is until the end of the council term, which is in 2022, at which time we'll advertise for an entirely new committee. However, anyone that is currently on the committee could reapply.
I want to offer my thanks to Bruce, because Bruce has spent an awful lot of time in very, very muddy waters. I'm surprised he hung in there as long as he has, because the temperature in there is anywhere but conducive to I don't know what you want to call it. It's not a pleasant environment to work under. And as I say, my gratitude goes out to him. So we now have we other information items? Anybody else wants to bring anything forward? Yes.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, if you want to. Going, Historical Society, sorry. Right.
Yes.
Through you, Mayor Clarkson, this item was not included on the agenda, and I believe to be accountable and transparent, we should include the additional funds on an agenda. So I would suggest that this either goes through as GHHS submitted correspondence that I could include for action, or alternatively, Mayor Clarkson could submit a notice of motion for the next meeting.
Does it have to be that complicated?
Through you, just to be accountable to the public who may have read this agenda and not attended the meeting due to not knowing that this item was going to be discussed, I think we have an obligation to them to provide them with proper notice that this item will be discussed.
Well, another information item, or whatever, I would like to see the liaisons from different committees once a month bring reports back to whatever they have garnered out of meetings that they've attended to. And the idea comes from the county. So every committee that we're on, once a meeting, there's a section for liaison reports. So if we've attended a meeting and there's anything of interest in there, that's our time to say, okay, this is what we've learned. Or sometimes there won't have been a meeting at all. But now that we're doing these online video where people can actually hear what we've got to say, it's a way to maybe draw the community a little bit more into what the municipality actually does. Because the majority of people don't see us as people who do any more than attend council meetings and you know, answer a few phone calls. But in fact, we're all involved in committees. And these committees are active in the communities, and I think our liaison report would be really advantageous to the public to actually hear what it is that we do. Like I'm the liaison for the Tourist Association. So, you know, when they have a meeting, some meetings, there wouldn't be that much to it, but there's always something that you can bring back. Carol, I don't know what, well, you would be the representative from for economic development. So you could thumbnail that one. Terry, you're on a couple.
Mhm.
And are you on the, you're not on the fire anymore, are you? Ron, I think you two piggyback on a couple, and then you're on
I'm on with conservation.
conservation,
Okay.
and you're on the BCC.
Mhm.
So if there's any traction for that, we'll give Jesse some time to sort of figure out the wording of this and give it a try. And it would just be listed as liaison reports. And how did people feel about that? Carol?
We'll just wait till the side conversation is done.
Are you two done down there? You
Thank you.
Nazi twins?
I think that's a great idea. I don't know that it needs to be terribly formalized. I'm not sure we need it for either economic development or parks and rec because we get their meeting minutes in full. So for us to try and summarize them, we already have the minutes. So not sure about those two. The others, I think it's, I think it's a great idea so that we all are better informed about what's going on.
Well, and even economic development, we get the minutes, but the public that's listening to this, they're not going through those. And if you take our meeting that we would have, there might only be 2 or 3 things that pop up that are new that might, like for instance, the park at Golden Lake, that conversation could have been brought in through a liaison. So I think it has value. Terry?
Yeah, I think that business rising out of a previous meeting is the category to bring that up.
To put it
So
in.
Each person that wants to present something about a meeting they've been at, so that category can be expanded to that.
Yeah.
It's a good
Well,
idea.
just put
I
it,
think there might be another way when we have minutes from a meeting, the liaison can highlight important issues that are in the minutes
Mhm.
and maybe expand upon what's in the minutes. And that'd be an appropriate part to do it in.
if we use the structure that the county uses, and we start by doing a very brief oral, it's simple. If anybody's got more depth, then you can refer them to minutes. But it's a matter of really getting the public to understand the scope of where we are involved in the community. And it also gets each of us in touch with what the other one is doing. I think it's valuable. We don't operate in an island. People think we do, but we don't. Anyway, I spoke to Jesse earlier about this, and if it's all right, I think we shall pilot this for a couple of months and see how it goes. And if people are, they find that there's a better way of doing it. But it's better sometimes to use something you know works than to try to rewrite something. Yes.
Thank you, Madam. In that spirit.
Yes.
The Galway Hall had their AGM by Zoom, I think 2 weeks ago, and simply reinforced their request for budget items this year, which we've dealt with in our budget sessions. And their entire board has agreed to continue to serve for next year, and they have 0 events planned for the near future because of COVID, but they will meet until
There's our first liaison report right there.
short and sweet.
Put her on the wall. Carol did it. Okay. Now, we need to have a motion to go into closed. And everyone else can leave the meeting at this point, and if you want to come back when we reconvene, you are welcome to do so. So a motion to go into closed. Deputy Mayor Windover. Councillor Lambshead. All in favor? Carries. I want to thank Dylan and Jesse, before I forget, for helping us through all the technical difficulties. I thank the public for hanging in there. But these are growing pains, and I'm very surprised that the two of them were able to solve this, because we were close to having to adjourn the meeting, and that would have been really tough. So right now we need a motion to rise from the closed meeting. Deputy Mayor Windover, Councillor Franzen, all in favor? That is carried. Business arising from the closed meeting, we need to adopt the minutes of January the 12th and the 27th. Councillor Armstrong, Councillor Franzen, all in favor? Library board appointment, we need a motion. Councillor Franzen, Councillor Armstrong, all in favor? Do we want to name the person at this point?
Yes, through you, that motion was to appoint Kent Staines to the library board for the remainder of the 2018-2022 council term.
Perfect, well done. Adoption of the confirming bylaw. And that is also a motion. I need from Councillor Lambshead, Deputy Mayor Windover. All in favor? And that is carried. And a motion to adjourn. I've never seen such input. Thank you, folks. You've all made the motion. You've all seconded it. All in favor? Well done, folks. Thanks, staff.